Okay, we're very glad to have you today. We're kind of excited about this interview, so thanks for your time. So today we're here to talk about, specifically, we're going to talk about the movie Shoot 'Em Up.
Great.
Me and Eugene were very excited. We like this movie so much. So,
I'm maybe worst English speaker in the world, and I don't know English
No, you're great.
well enough. Okay, I have eight questions. First, you wrote the script for Shoot 'Em Up in 2000, yeah, but it wasn't filmed until 2007. Why was such a long gap?
Are you familiar with the Columbine High School shooting in 2000?
Yes, I heard about this.
we do, yes.
So basically, like a week after I gave the script to my manager, Columbine High happened. And Hollywood decided that they were not going to glamorize gun violence and actions and shooting, right? So that immediately, shut that down. And, the film business is really difficult. You think that, if you have a great project, it's easy to finance. It's not. So I had moved on and was making these super duper low budget movies for this company, Dream Entertainment. I'm not sure the years on them, but I did a thing called 100 Girls, 100 Women, and a horror film called Monster Man that has some funny stuff in it. And Dream Entertainment wanted to do Shoot 'Em Up, but they were a low budget company. They tried to make offers. They made offers to Wesley Snipes, never heard back from him. Made a giant offer to John Travolta, who I didn't think was super right for it, but he was in that Face Off, John Woo movie. So, and at this point, I'm saying any way I could get it going. And again, the agents for these actors didn't really think that Dream was a big player. They don't like their clients to work for lower budget companies because it lowers the prestige of the actor. And so we couldn't get it going, and I stopped making movies with them. And my career's been very up and down. I was struggling, but I guess this was 2005 or 2006. I went to film school at the University of Southern California with Don Murphy, who has done a bunch of movies, and he was making the Transformers movies. And he loved the script. And I also had done those animations. Have you seen the animations that I did?
The
Um,
15-minute animation, right?
yes. And he took it to New Line Cinema, and we got very lucky, and they decided to make it. So that's the reason for the gap. Ultimately, it's Columbine High stopped me from shopping it, but as I said, I was just a independent filmmaker. I didn't have a lot of stature. Um, the funny thing is that all my life I've been a big action fan. When I was in high school or junior high, I wrote these James Bond novels. One was called Spearhead, and the other one was called Masquerade of Death. And I always loved action films. But because I couldn't make action films, I started making these romantic comedies, 8 days a week that went to Slam Dance, 100 Girls, 100 Women. So when I got to make Shoot 'Em Up, everybody's going, why is this teen romantic comedy guy getting to make an action movie? When it should have been when I was making my teen movies. Why is this guy who loves action movies making these teen romantic comedies? And the thing about it is you got to make what you can make. You know what I mean? And so these teen movies obviously were a lot cheaper and they didn't require a star. So anyway, so that's kind of accounts for the gap.
So I have a kind of follow-up question from here. Yeah, you mentioned that before you were working with mostly romantic and comedies, and did Shoot 'Em Up help you shake off this label of being a writer of teen comedies? Maybe did it like help you to pave the way for work in other genres?
Oh, you guys are so kind. So, Shoot 'Em Up was not a hit in the United States, or a hit ever. It did just okay. And in Hollywood, Everything is based on your heat, how successful you are. Now, if you are a director or filmmaker that's made a few hits and then you have a dud, everybody goes, that's okay. He still made other hits. Let's hire him. But because Shoot 'Em Up was my only studio movie, right? I didn't have the heat to move on to get to direct other movies. I got to take movie meetings, but it was like I ended up pitching. Do you remember these movies, Red and Red 2, right, with Bruce Willis and Helen Mirren?
Yes.
I pitched to direct the sequel to Red 2. And the executive I pitched to loved my pitch and said, this is like the best pitch I've ever heard. But then he called my agent and he says, you know, Michael would be great for this, but my boss, all he's going to ask is Shoot 'Em Up, how to do at the box office. And when he sees that it's not a hit, he's going to say no. And these guys, the frustrating thing is, and I can't get my boss to sit down for 90 minutes to watch the movie to see how great it is. Later on, because this executive was so honest, that I sat down with him and says, you know, I just want to get your perspective from an executive standpoint about my career. And he said, the other thing is that you've been an indie filmmaker and all your movies have their own signature. They have their own style. And we don't want somebody with their own signature. We want somebody that just does a cookie cutter Red 2. And I wanted to say to him, look, you're going to be seeing the dailies every day. If there's something there that's too wild, too Michael Davis, you can just shut that down. It's not, also, I'm not writing the script, and usually the character of the movie is built into the script. If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, right? And so, but they're always so nervous, right? They just want to pick somebody that keeps their job safe. And so I got very, you know, I always strive to say, I want to make movies that have my signature, that you can only tell is a Michael Davis movie. That's the best thing. Why would you want to be a journeyman that nobody knew your work, right? But here they were basically saying to get a new assignment. And so anyway, you know, at the same time, it's harder because Shoot 'Em Up didn't succeed, for me to go and make another movie of that level because people are going to be afraid of, can they make their money back? So I spent about 5 years learning this, still taking meetings, still hoping to find the right fit. I got to write a TV pilot. I got to rewrite it. I got a few jobs. But I was very frustrated, and it's despairing. And so a friend of mine or an investor wanted to make a movie about behind the scenes in the White House. So I don't know if you've seen, there's trailers out there. Have you seen the trailer for my feature film Nixed? If you go on the internet, it's spelled Nixed, and it's an alternative history about President Nixon solving the John F. Kennedy assassination. And it's really funny, and I hand drew the entire movie. And there's this big animation festival. It's the most prestigious animation festival in the world, Annecy International Animation Film Festival. And I screened the film there. And since then, now I've got a sales agent who's looking for the right home, the right distribution. So I've gotten into animation, but recently I've moved from the drawn animation to computer-generated animation and gotten really good at it. And I'm launching a crowdfunding project, and you're probably the first ones in the press to know about it. And it's basically a science fiction shoot 'em up, and I'm calling it Blast 'em Up. And so it's a science fiction Italian job. And it's really awesome, and it's going to have all the great shoot 'em up action. And because, you know, I can do whatever I want, I can have whatever budget I want, whatever sets I want, because I'm going to animate the whole damn thing myself. So anyway, I'm kind of excited about that because I'm going to be making movies when I'm 90 because I'm just going to animate the damn things rather than looking around for money and saying, please give me a job. So I wish I could tell you, you know, that Shoot 'em Up opened up all these other opportunities. All it did was open up opportunities for me to take meetings and then be told no and waste my time. It's a hard filmmaking is a hard business, and it really is about star power and whether or not your last movie was a hit. It really, I mean, it's a lot easier if you have a big gigantic hit.
Oh, thank you.
Does that make sense? You understand that about Hollywood.
That makes sense.
I was telling you, I don't know if it exists, but years ago, before the fall of the Soviet Union, if you wanted to make a feature film and you were talented, as long as you made movies that were politically correct, right? You would just go to the state and say, hey, I want to make this cool movie. And if you're talented, they would say yes. And they probably wouldn't worry whether or not your last movie was popular. I would probably have made a ton of movies if I were making, like I would have made the Russian James Bond, and I would make an awesome hero, right? Which would be super fun, right?
Oh, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned they have it. It calls Major Thunder, Major Grom. It's like based on.
Well, I researched something. There was also a famous guy, or they based these stories. They were post World War II guy that was sort of the Russian James Bond, but he wasn't like a jet setter. I have to look it up. I can send you the name later because I've researched that there was a series of novels, and then they made a movie. But of course, he had to be for the workers, right? So he didn't get in the tuxedos and have the fast cars and all that stuff, which, is part of the glamour of Bond, is because you get the jet set. But of course, the hero had to represent the values of the country. And so he was very much a man of the people. So he was like James Bond, but he also wasn't glamorous like James Bond. I'll send you the name because I don't know. There was another project. I was researching the history, and I wanted to come up with a character that was really the Soviet James Bond, and I found him, but he wasn't. I wanted to make a glamorous Russian James Bond.
They kind of have it. It's calls Colonel Thunder. It's about the police officer who saves the day. Right.
Well, you send me the name of the title, because I want to research those movies, because I got to believe that at a certain point they're going to be awesome. Like I love action.
About the star power, Eugene has another question. Eugene,
yes,
sort of.
Вы заговорили о русском Джеймсе Бонде, и, насколько я помню, ваш фильм тоже был своего рода отсылкой к Джеймсу Бонду. Но сам ваш фильм, помимо того, что в себе содержит кучу отсылок, он, как вы думаете, он вдохновил других режиссеров, чтобы они отсылались к вам?
Okay, so he said you were talking about James Bond, but Eugene says that your movie was kind of the reference to James Bond. So was it? Yeah.
Yeah, so, nobody writes about this, but okay, you know that James Bond's gun is the Walther PPK.
Yeah, right.
So in the first scene when he's delivering the baby, the gun jams, right? And Clive Owen says, piece of crap. Clive didn't really like it when I referred to it. I kept saying that the Mr. Smith was a blue-collar James Bond. But I think because he had been they had been considered for James Bond, he didn't want anything to be about this movie associated with James Bond. He wanted it to be iconic and to be his own. But in terms of, and probably he's right, because except for that piece of crap thing, there is, it's not really James Bond, but, any action hero who gets the girl and screws the bad guy is always compared to being like James Bond.
Yeah, it is funny. I think it was like a clear reference because there was a fingerprint.
So you got it, but my fans didn't get it. I laugh my head off every time I see it. But I mean, this isn't quite the same thing, but when the Paul Giamatti character tells the limerick, there was once a woman who was quite begat, who had 3 kids named Nat, Pat, and Tat. There's fun in the breeding, but hell in the feeding when there was no tit for tat. Well, I like that because it kind of fit the moment, but that was a dirty limerick that my dad told me. And I knew that since I was a little kid. And so when I see that scene, it always tickles me because I got to put in something from my dad that my dad used to say into the movie.
Насчет Джеймса Бонда. Это же смешно еще то, что его как раз номинировали когда-то на роль Джеймса Бонда, он проходил кастинг.
Yeah, he said it's funny because it's funny because Clive Owen was nominated for the James Bond role. Oh, he was casted, right? He was trying to get in a movie about the James Bond.
Well, no, I mean, there was talk on the internet about him being James Bond. I can't remember. I don't know whether or not he ever interviewed. And, you know, I'm actually friends with George Lazenby, who is James Bond on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And he was telling me that when you become Bond, there's so many restrictions on your life that you have to appear a certain way when you go out in public. Like, they don't really like their actors that play Bond to wear beards and have disheveled wild hair. They want them when they go out in public to present that image. And also those actors, because Bond is so iconic, it makes them harder to get other parts. And I think ultimately Clive really cared more about the range of parts he got to play than getting to, you know, get all the money and the world prestige and stardom of Bond. And so I don't think he really wanted Bond. It was never offered to him. It was just the people who kept saying he'd look great as Bond. He made this early movie, Croupier, if you've seen it, where he plays a casino croupier. He's in the white tux with a black bow tie, very much like Connery at the beginning of Goldfinger. And I think everybody goes, oh my God, he looks so great. He looks so tough and he's a great actor. Wouldn't it be great if he played Bond? But I don't really think that, you know, that it was, he really wanted it, and it was never offered to him. You know, I don't even know if he talked to them. You'd have to talk to the Broccolis about that, or Michael Wilson, the producers of the Bond movies, what that was. I mean, I'm very curious as to who the next Bond is. And my feeling is they always pick actors that are not quite stars yet, because then that star becomes Bond rather than just the star that he is. Like, they would never make Hugh Jackman Bond. Ewan McGregor wanted to be Bond before, you know, instead of Daniel Craig. But everybody knows these people. They like to bring somebody out of semi-obscurity, you know?
Yeah, I think they were talking about Aaron Taylor Johnson playing next Bond, but I think it's just a rumor for now.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say, I mean, this is a little bit off reference, but, you know, I used to be a storyboard artist. And I got to storyboard this movie, Medicine Man, that had Sean Connery, who is my favorite Bond. So I was on a movie. I was too afraid to talk to him. And then I was storyboarding this movie called Live Wire with Pierce Brosnan. And I was coming to the set to deliver my storyboards. And Pierce Brosnan yells across the set looking at me, Steven, how's Hook? How's Hook? And I'm like, are you talking to me? And I get close to him, and he thought, people used to think I looked like Steven Spielberg, and Pierce thought I was Steven Spielberg coming to his set. And I said, Pierce, I am the storyboard artist. I'm not Steven. Oh, yes, you are. And I go, no, look at the photo of Steven. I'm not him. But so I'm friends with George Lazenby. I was on a set with Sean Connery. I met Pierce Brosnan. I unfortunately, you know, didn't, you know, get to meet Roger Moore, but I'd love to meet Timothy Dalton. You know, so, you know, anyway. So I love Bond, you know, I love action movies.
We can feel that in your movie, shouldn't we?
How did you get famous actors like Clive Owen, Paul Giamatti, and Monica Bellucci on board?
Well, you know, there's two things, I think. You know, it's funny, when Clive started getting his Children's of Men movie and I got my shoot 'em up project going, he said, oh, you know, we are overnight successes after 15 years. And what happened is when I wrote the script, most scripts are very, you know, dense, or at least has this descriptions that are like 4 or 5 lines long and a line of dialogue and then more description. And in Hollywood, the first people that read scripts are these script readers, and then they could be young kids. They could be 20, 22 years old. and they tell people whether the script's good. And they read so many scripts that they get fatigued. So I wrote the script to Shoot 'em Up almost like a haiku, right? That it was one line, double space, one line, double space. So there was a lot of white space. So when the reader read it, they go, oh my God, this will be an easy read because I don't have to read all these words. I can just skim down. And because it was like a haiku, that it read faster. So then the action seemed faster on the page. And so people took notice of the script, and the script became this hot script. And then when we went out, and there was this site, Ain't It Cool News, it's not up anymore, or it hardly is anything. But and then all these other websites showed my animation. Everybody thought this was the coolest thing. All the fans were saying, please make the movie, right? And then the other thing I have to say is when a studio says they're going to make the movie, not develop the movie, but make the movie, all the agencies, great, job for my actors, right? So, and they don't even care whether the script is good or not, but they know they can get their actors paid. So the combination of the script being hot, the internet loving the animation, the studio saying yes, right? It's a job for an actor. We're definitely making it. I was like, after all these years of struggling, they were saying, oh, Russell, would you meet with Russell Crowe, right? Ryan Reynolds wants to play Mr. Smith, and maybe I should have, Jennifer Lopez wants to play, the part of DQ. I had all these people that, and I ended up getting to meet a lot of people, like, and it was really fun. I got to meet like Willem Dafoe, wanted to play the Hertz character. There was just a ton of people that I got to take meetings with that weren't really right for the movie, but it was fun to be sort of, for a short moment, I was a star. And, Clive was very hot at the moment. He was going to be in Children of Men. Everybody wanted him. He was going to be nominated for an Academy Award. Mike Nichols wanted him. And, but because the script was so hot, and he actually saw the animation on the internet, and that's when he was sold on it. And then I met him for drinks, because they want to feel out, can I hang out with this guy for 6 months? Is this, is the guy for real? What is he like? And we really hit it off. I mean, he is just the nicest, coolest guy in the world. And we had a great conversation, and he was in. And then after that, it was easy. Paul Giamatti wanted to work with Clive Owen, right? And then after I had those two guys, well, then Monica Bellucci wanted to do it, and so it's really sort of, again, I was talking to you about heat and whether you're hot or you're a star. A script can be a star, the project can be a star. And so for a short moment, I had heat.
Okay, how did you come up with the idea to use a carrot as a weapon? Clearly, it doesn't help anyone become healthy in a movie.
Okay, so you know how in most movies, the straight man or the hero is kind of boring. They don't make him eccentric. He's not odd. He's just boring, right? And I am drawn to eccentric characters, right? And I'm also, when I'm writing a script, you're trying, it's hard to write, don't move, hands up, you're trying to come up, what is a element that can make something pop or different or do something weird or offbeat, right? And so I always start with the concept. And here's this guy who's the greatest shooter in the world. And it's explained in the movie that carrots are supposedly good for the eyes, right? So I make him a guy that's always eating carrots, right? So he's eating carrots just because that fits the character. And it's funny, you never see James Bond eating a carrot. But, this guy is destitute, right? He's probably, has not much money. And then you see in his place, he's growing a vegetable garden, right? And so that makes it, when you're having to have a dialogue scene, instead of just explaining things, you do something that distracts the audience that you're writing expositional dialogue. Oh, so while he's giving information, he's proud of his garden, right? And you get to know him, that he's this nurturing guy. So if he's carrying the carrot, right, at a certain point, you get into situations where how is the character going to save the day? He doesn't have a weapon. He doesn't have anything, right? And so then I did it once, and I go, that's kind of good. And then there were a couple of places like I don't like to repeat myself. So my favorite one is where he shoves the carrot in the trigger guard so it pushes the trigger back so it stays, so he can throw it, right? Because that's clever, right? No, actually my favorite one is when he's in the car and he can't reach the gun that's behind the back seat,
yes.
and he uses it to actually reach the gun, right? Because it's just kind of fun, you know what I mean? And it's his thing. And again, if the movie was realistic, like I give this movie Heat a hard time because everybody thinks, oh, the gun battle is so great. But that movie's restrained by being realistic. It's just gunshot, muzzle blast, gunshot. It's just basically flaming muzzles, right? But if you're doing something that's kind of wild and not realistic, then you can add these eccentric things in that are kind of fun, you know? So it all starts with the script. He's a good gunfighter. He needs good eyesight. Carrots are good for eyesight. It's his portable gimmick, right? And then the gimmick you sprinkle throughout the movie.
It's funny because you're saying it's good for the eyes, but I guess it's just good for his eyes because other people just suffered from this character.
So yeah, well, might be an old wives' tale, but probably some of the vitamins in it, they say, supposedly are good for your eyes. It might be disputed now, but if you look up art, there's a mythology about carrots and eyesight.
Yeah. Yeah, I like your reference to Looney Tune. You're also saying it's a violent Looney Tune, and there is a reference to "What's Up, Dog."
Well, I did again. I'm not the best at being collaborative because I write, I direct, I animate, but I do. One of the executives at New Line who championed me is this guy named Jeff Katz, and he said Mr. Hertz should have a Looney Tunes ringtone because that's real, right? And that's that's a nod to the audience that yes, it is Looney Tunes, and it supports the carrot thing. Like, oh, that was a great idea. Michael must have put that in the script, but I didn't. But I do think Jeff's idea having Mr. Hertz having a ringtone that was Looney Tunes then makes everything feel like it's organic and it all fits. The only thing I probably missed is probably when they're looking at the TV channels and he sees the politician talking about his campaign. If I could have licensed it, but it costs a lot of money, I should have licensed a Looney Tune, right? Because then that would be another way that I referenced it as a motif, but I didn't.
Right.
Why is the main character named Smith? It's a very common name for an action hero. For example, in Mr. and Mrs. Smith or Matrix, this detail of interesting, but when I searched your name on IMDb, I found several actors and directors with your name.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll start first with Smith. The phrase over here, John Doe. He's a John Doe. It's basically it's the generic thing. Like if you have to do an advertisement. And you have to put someone's name on there that you're not going to get in trouble with the advertising and putting somebody's name on there. John Doe is like the generic name, and Smith and Jones are basically very, very common nondescript names. Probably in the character in real life is not named Mr. Smith, but there's so many Smiths in America, it would be hard to find a Mr. Smith if you were using that as your other identity, right? It's the most common name in America. That's why it is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's just so generic. But the other thing, somebody told me that my last name, Davis, is the 7th most common name in America. And I'm not sure, but it is fairly common, right? And yes, there are a couple other, I think there's another Michael Davis, but he uses his middle name. And then there was a famous comedian performer who was a juggler named Michael Davis. And then you probably are too young, but if you go back, they used to have these Federal Express commercials. And they had this guy who would really talk super fast, and he'd talk for 30 seconds super fast. And that guy's name is Michael Davis. So it's a very common name. It's like I worked for a brief time with this director McGee, who I really like. And he's kind of smart because he branded himself McGee. Now, I think he was called that by his friends in high school, so it came up by accident, right? But it does help you stand out. And I think if you have an exotic name, like, it's not, Steven Spielberg maybe doesn't sound that great, but in Germany, Spielberg means play mountain. Well, isn't that what his early movies were about? This mountainous amount of playful things? Spielberg, right? That's pretty cool, right? Or if you have an Italian Scorsese, I'm stuck. I used to think, oh, it's like Paul Thomas Anderson. Those are all very common names. But if he went by Paul Anderson, right, it would be very, very boring. But so he goes Paul Thomas Anderson. Again, if you go by the common names, in the Matrix, Mr. Anderson, they would call Keanu Reeves. They were looking for very generic names. And if I could have gotten away with it, there is an element, these early Clint Eastwood movies, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, High Plains Drifter. He was the man with no name. And if I could have gotten away without anybody calling him anything, right? I would have loved to have made it, but it's just harder when the DQ is talking to him. And I don't want her to just keep calling him honey or babe or whatever, handsome, right? She has to call him something, right? And the fact that she doesn't know his first name, and she just calls him Smith, shows that he's afraid of commitment, afraid of intimacy. He's been with her, but he's never told her his first name. And so that's kind of where the whole Smith thing comes from. By the way, I love Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I wish Brad Pitt would make more fun action movies, but he likes to mix it up.
So what is his real name of character?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably something British because I decided that even though it's an American movie, I didn't want Clive to have to make an American accent. I think his American accent in Sin City was good, but it's still, I listen to these audiobooks and a lot of these British detective thrillers, and they sometimes have American characters, and it's really interesting, the American actors, the American accent that these British readers do, and it never sounds quite American. So I basically, described him as having come over to America, and probably he came over here illegally because he's off the grid, and so he probably just adopted the name Smith, but probably he has some other British name, maybe Bond or something.
In many interviews, you said that the screenplay was inspired by a scene from John Woo's Hard Boiled. Has your movie inspired other directors?
Yeah, there's a movie, I'm kind of mad. There's this movie called Drive Angry with Nick Cage. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he has a scene where he's making love to the woman and he's shooting everybody while he's making love. It is a direct ripoff, right? Now, but the only other thing that I have to say, I don't know whether I've inspired other movies, but I know that there's this song in the second song in it called The Joker and the Thief, right? When he's on the rooftop and he does the fuck you sign.
Yeah.
They have used that song in so many other action scenes in other movies that I'm surprised, because if I saw a song that was in an iconic action scene, I wouldn't want to use that music. But it's been used in a lot of, the song that I'm gonna forget, the song that's in the shootout in the loft where he, rappels down the rope and all that, that's been used in a lot of action scenes. So I think people have looked at the movie, right? But the one thing that this is not quite the same thing, but what is the name? There's a show, I'll have to send it back. But it's called Mythbusters. Have you ever heard of the show Mythbusters?
Yes.
And it's a show where they try to say, could something really happen? And so they did a section on Shoot 'em Up of could a bullet hit the carousel that the baby was on, right? And
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can find it. Just do a YouTube search. And they ultimately said, well, probably not. There's too much resistance in the gear, and you really would have to blow that thing to spin. It's really a movie device. But again, I always love the physics in animated cartoons. Like if you have a plank and it's leaning over something and somebody lands on it and then they shoot the guy up in the air. I just like the mechanics of animated cartoons because anything can happen. And so I think in my world, a bullet would spin the dang thing. But you should check it out. Mythbusters.
Mythbusters.
And so I like, I don't care about making a ton of money in Hollywood or whatever. I just like making cool, fun things and being part of pop culture. And although the movie wasn't a hit, there are places like Mythbusters that have done things from shoot 'em up. It's popular enough that I'm sort of in the pop culture a little bit, and that kind of makes me feel like I made a mark.
So yeah, the follow-up question, I guess. You like to make this movie, and I wanted to ask, do you have any ideas for something similar to this? And if you have, do you think like that the movie like Shoot 'Em Up can exist in the modern era of the stereo Hollywood? And how do you think the audience and critics will receive it? Something like
I'm going to ask you. So I'm prepping this Blast 'Em Up. It's a science fiction shoot 'em up. It's all the things you can do with a blaster. So it's basically, it's not a sequel because it's a different character and it's in the future, but tonally it's going to be just like Shoot 'Em Up, but it's going to be in the future. And I'm going to ask you when I start crowdfunding. I don't know, whether or not you guys know, Kickstarter over there.
Yes, sure.
Maybe when I get close to launching, maybe you can help get the word out that people should fund Blast 'Em Up. So I am planning on that. I do think that John Wick is an example of this kind of movie, being a phenomenal success. And I really love those movies. I also love the lush photography. But I think it's hit or miss. I think that the streaming world has changed the landscape, and I just think that these movies should be on the big screen, but they're probably, most of movies are going to now end up on the small screen. There was a prediction about 15 years ago that Hollywood was either going to make big, gigantic, tent poles, right? Or you're going to make really small indie movies or unique movies. And the movies that are in between would not succeed. And in general, most of the action movies that are made from $40 to $80 million just do okay. Like even if you look at the Jason Statham movies, which are really good, but they're never made for a big budget, a lot of them just do okay, right? I love him. I love his movies, right? And they must be solid, but none of them are these blockbuster hits. And that's because I think the audiences that if they want to pay the money for an action movie, they want everything. They want Tony Stark. They want the Marvel. They want the whatever, the giant stuff. And my movie was made as an not old fashioned, but like a medium budget movie. And the medium budget movies, even non-action movies that are medium budget, are struggling. And part of it is that number one, TV series are more compelling than movies, I think, nowadays. And if people see something they like, they would rather see 10 episodes of something than just 2 hours, right? But that said, I think if you have a compelling concept, this world of assassins and John Wick, Keanu Reeves he's one of my favorite actors, and the movies are so well done and so much fun that they can succeed. But again, part of it is all marketing. You have to come out at the right time. If you're a success, it's easier to market the sequel, right? And I do have to say that, I think we struggled that, like the summer before Shoot 'Em Up came out, I was they used to, what a Blockbuster video store is, or the video stores. I went into the video store and I was talking to a guy, my movie's coming out, it's starring Clive Owen. And the guy goes, "Who's Clive Owen?" So if the guy at the video store didn't know who Clive Owen was, wasn't getting the juice of having a famous star with the movie. And so again, that kind of hurts. Marketing and timing, and maybe if Clive had been in my movie a year later, right, maybe more Americans would have known him, right? There are all sorts of things, that can help with making a movie. Certainly, everybody knew Keanu Reeves, and they have that great scene in the lobby, the gunfight in the first Matrix, right? And so what if we had John Wick and had all sorts of Matrix-like gunfights? I would go see that movie, and that's part of why the movie's a hit.
But the director was a stuntman before, right? The Chad Stahelski. Do you think he brings something new to this genre?
Yeah, I think it's great to have new. I think it's great to have new directors, and I always thought the best way to become a director is to become a screenwriter, because it's hard to find good scripts. So if you have a script that people are dying to make, you can leverage that into, okay, you can have the script, but you have to let me direct. That's basically how to have it and shoot them up. But I think that the other way to go is if you have a relationship with an actor. And I think it was two guys that were the stunt coordinators on a bunch of the Matrix movies or whatever, but they knew Keanu, I think, and he trusted them. He knew they had good taste. And if you have the actor backing the director, even if they haven't done a feature film, right, and the script is good, I think it's great to have directors come from that background, or any background that they can find. Everybody's story of their way they got to direct is different. But some methods are harder than others. Most stunt coordinators want to direct, but can't find a way to direct. So I love those guys.
Just notice about Jason Statham. It's funny because he has the same scene in The Fate and the Furious. He has a gunfight with a baby on board an airplane.
Is there an airplane gunfight from another
It is
movie?
an airplane gunfight, and there is Jason Statham holding the baby on the board and shooting everybody around.
The Fast and Furious movies?
Yes,
it's
yes,
Fate
yes,
and
yes.
Furious. It's
Yes.
a gunfight in midair?
On airplane with a baby.
Oh my God! Well, I usually people tell me I'll have to check it out. So
Okay,
okay,
we can find it. We can find it.
well, I bet you their special effects were better than mine.
They
And
also
they
have a
more
bigger
money,
budget.
so whatever. But I'll have to check that out. That's pretty funny.
В фильме «Кунг Фьюри» есть сцена, где герой падает с моста, стреляет в машину и падает прямо на водительское место. Вот, мне кажется, это тоже отсылка к вашему фильму. И, кстати, как она была снята вообще?
So he says, there is an example, like the reference to your movie in a Kung Fury. Have you seen it? Like the YouTube blockbuster.
Kung Fu Fury. Which one is
Fury.
that? A animated movie or is it the Stephen Chow movie?
Который на YouTube был.
Didn't he do a Kung Pao Fury? I don't know. What's the movie? Kung Fu Fury?
Kung Fury, yeah, it's a small budget movie, and there is a similar scene with the hero falling into his car, and also shooting through the roof window.
Well, the thing about it is that if it were me, I'd go, I'm inspired by this, but I'm going to do something different, right? But if they're doing the exact same thing, they're hoping, well, that's again, Shoot 'em Up wasn't a big hit, so we might as well, steal it. But I think you should try to do something a little bit different, but, whatever. I would never, I copied the baby with the gunman from John Woo, okay. But I decided to make a whole movie out of it, which is a bigger idea than just the scene. If I had just done a scene, it's a ripoff. But if I'm inspired and do a whole movie, I think that's okay. But I'm never going to steal an idea and make it the exact same thing, because I want to do something new. I want to be inventive and original. But unfortunately, audiences don't really care that much. They forget, or they still think it's fun. And I guess, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So, but that's funny. I'm going to have to check these out. I only saw the one in Drive Angry. Other than that, I haven't seen these direct copies. But I got to look at the Statham and the Kung Fu Fury.
Yeah, we
That's
can help
crazy.
you. We can send you the codes.
Yeah, send me clips. They apparently a year after Shoot 'Em Up came out, India, Bollywood is notorious for making direct ripoffs, and they made a direct ripoff of Shoot 'Em Up with a gunman with a baby, with their India's action star. But it's so funny because that guy is like really hefty, he kind of almost has a double chin and a beard, and I'm like, this guy's not an action star, he's India's action star, and but. So apparently in India they made a whole movie that's a ripoff of Shoot 'Em Up.
Mm.
But I don't know
Since
what the title is. But I was always pleased. I can't remember whether it's France or in London, but someone made a gigantic mural, like a 20-foot by 10-foot mural of Clive Owen from Shoot 'Em Up. And I mean, that's really cool. That's like the ultimate compliment. That somebody
really,
did a mural in a big city. That's
wow,
really cool. I mean, if I can find the photo on my old computer, I'll send it to you. Maybe it's gotten painted over by now, but
Okay.
I mean, that's like the other thing that's really neat. And if you guys are doing this for the article, there's not a lot of fan art out there, but there's some people that have made these really fun posters, right, for Shoot 'Em Up, that are really clever and fun, and I love seeing them. I'm most proud of him flying through the windshield, because that's the one that, even though my movie wasn't a hit, I went to see it opening night at a movie theater, and people literally stood up and cheered when they saw that. They were blown away. The thing that is interesting when you analyze other filmmakers, that I differentiate between spectacle and action. And like a lot of Michael Bay movies, they're spectacles, and he gets like 15 or 10 cameras, right, filming this spectacle, right? And they set all the explosions and all the cars, the tumble. And because he has all these cameras, right, he's going to capture this one event. And all they have to do is cameras rolling, and they press the button, and all the explosion happens. And after the explosion's over, they got it. It's done. But with the car chase, I can't film all that with multiple cameras and get it in after we rehearse it and we get it done. I have to take the hour to do the first shot of him, shooting through his own windshield, then make sure he shoots the other windshield. I have to get the van shot of its window. I need to do the stunt of him going out the window. I need to do the stunt of him going in the window. I need the stuntman to tumble into the car. I need to bang into the close-up to him in the car. You only can, because the action is so interesting but so specific, I can only use a specific camera, and it takes days to get all the pieces together. Whereas some action you can just do, right? And that's why I get frustrated when people go, oh, the gunfight in Heat. Well, you just take a steady cam and you run with Al Pacino, boom, 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 and then you do the reverse, and you do Robert De Niro, boom, 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 and you film them running for 5 minutes. Then you have all this material in like a few shots, and then you cut it together because there's nothing specific. It's just shoot, shoot, shoot. You don't need to get, how I was talking about the Looney Tune, the animation physics. That takes a long time, right? It's not an efficient way of shooting, right? I have to say that I was frustrated with the skydiving scene. I think if I had today's visual effects and the digital doubles, and I've seen later on, actually I've seen some of these gimbals they've made for the Marvels movies. We didn't have that. We had poor Clive hanging by freaking wires, really uncomfortable. And I wanted to get more shots where it seemed like he was rushing by the camera. And nowadays, with the CGI doubles are so photorealistic, it could have been a lot cooler. And so I love the concept, and I love the fact that I got all the ideas there that, he pulls his parachute and all the crazy stuff, that him spinning around and shooting. I love the concepts, but I think the execution was not, even at the time, state of the art. And so, but I love the idea of it.
Last year, Clive Owen said in an interview with Screen Rant what he have got very fond memories of working with you. Do you want to work with him again?
Well, I would love to, but he's very busy. I love his Monsieur Spade that he does. The thing about it is that Clive has said to me many times it was the most fun he ever had. And I think part of it is the movie itself was fun. I don't think it was much of an acting challenge for him, but I think that's okay. I mean, he's done such a great range of work. I think as an actor, it might be fun to just do a fun movie. I don't have to do the super emoting. And the one thing that was interesting, I don't know whether he does this in other movies, but they made on his contract to do the movie that he would never work longer than, I think, 10 hours. And these movies, sometimes they go into overtime or whatever. Whatever happened, we had the stretches. I only went into overtime one day, but if I had, I wouldn't be able to use Clive in overtime. So I think that he felt like it was a normal, he got regular hours. There was not insane hours, very relaxed shoot. The movie had minimal not that much dialogue, so there was less work, from just memorizing your line standpoint. And everybody on the crew was so energized. I think he really loved my director of photography was this guy, Peter Powell, of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And Peter was so prepared that we would be filming in one location and he'd have half his crew at the location that we would be at the next couple days. And so whenever we moved a location, we were almost ready to shoot. So there was a lot less waiting around, and we moved very quickly, and actors don't like waiting in their trailers. And so I think Clive really liked Peter Powell because he was so efficient, and so fun. And when an actor loves the entire crew, right? I mean, he's working with an Academy Award cinematographer. It's a fun project, and everybody's loving what they're doing, and I'm kind of a kooky guy, and I'm pretty relaxed, and most of the time, when we did a take and I would want another take, I would start telling him and he'd complete my sentence because he would know exactly what could be better. But, he was getting things, in the first 3 takes, and move on. And I think all of that made it a fun experience for him. So, yes, he has said that. And I'm really glad that it was a great experience. I had a great time making it.
Я бы еще хотел спросить по поводу композитора Пола Хаслингера. Что можете сказать о работе с ним?
He's asking about the work with the composer Paul Haslinger, if I pronounce it correct. What can you say about the work with him, collaboration?
Oh, well, I was a fan of Tangerine Dream, which he was a member of years ago. And I just thought he got the movie. And he kind of brought a kind of very contemporary sound to it. And, usually when he delivered a cue, it was either 100% perfect or 95% there. It was super fun working with Paul. He was really, really great.
I have it's not a personal question, I guess, but I'm a graduate student and my major is dramatic writing. So my question is, could you tell about your process of writing? How do you come up with the ideas, characters?
Well, you know what? Can I tell you the 2 books that I tell screenwriters to read that are better than any writing class you can ever have?
I would be glad to, yes.
Okay. There is a guy in Hollywood. His name is John Truby. His last name is Truby. And the book that is available is called Anatomy of a Story or Anatomy of a Screenplay. I can't remember which, but you can find it on Amazon. And you know how a lot of these people in screenplays, they talk about a 3-act structure?
Yes.
Well, John Truby doesn't do 3-act structure. He does it by 22 steps. And the 22 steps make it easier to know exactly how to fill out your movie. It's not like, oh, here's an act break, now what do I do in between? He has 22 steps that he thinks helps make a great drama. Okay. And then if you like his book, he also has a website. Go to truby.com, and he has either audio tapes or DVDs or downloads of his classes of the action movie, the horror movie, the crime story, the romantic comedy. And he talks about, he has these 22 steps, but he says each one of the genre hits one of these steps harder or in a different way, right? He also has this, at the end of each class, he talks about how can you transcend the genre? How can you take the action film and not just make it like every other movie? How can you make it super great? How can you transcend what's already been done? So John Truby, get his book and then or his audio or DVDs at truby.com.
So
and
do
then,
you also I'm sorry. Do you also follow these 22 steps or?
Yes, I always, even though you looked at him every single time, I bring out my old Truby notes and I look at them. I'll give you an example in a moment, but I don't want to forget the second book that you should read, right?
Sure.
Every one of these people that writes about writing screenplays, they always write about structure, but there's only one guy I know that talks about emotion. How do you make audiences feel for your protagonist? And there's this guy, his name is Carl with a K, Karl Iglesias with an Igelias. Again, Amazon. Carl Iglesias, and he has a book called Writing for Emotional Impact. And he basically talks about how do you make audiences feel for your character. And he has this amazing section that's about 5 pages long where he talks about story types that immediately make the audience love your character. And I'll give you, but imagine having 5 pages of ideas of, oh, this is how people love the character. I'll give you an example. One of his things is the hero who is unjustly accused. Right? You have a character and he goes, oh my God, that's the guy who killed her. Yeah, you killed him and he's on the run. Get him, get him. He's the killer, he's the killer. He did that bad thing. And he goes, no, I'm innocent. Right? You immediately go, this is so unfair. He's the nicest guy in the world. He would never, and now everybody thinks he's a jerk, right? Well, picture having 5 pages of him describing situations that make you go immediately love that character. But so like John Truby, I could go on and on, but just read the books. You can call me later and I can extrapolate. But the 22 steps are really great.
Yeah. So thank you for the advice.
So are you wanting to be a screenwriter, a novelist, or what?
That's a good question. This is a personal pain. I want to be a screenwriter, but it will take time because I'm also international. I guess I have a distinct voice, but I'm not so good with the language, so.
Well, but again, if I could be like a big successful filmmaker in my own country, forget being a worldwide filmmaker. If you can be a star in your community, that's going to be more satisfying than struggling with trying to get into the Cannes Film Festival and all that stuff. The other thing I would say is I wouldn't rule out novels because, they have this thing now where you can market your book, but you don't have to print 1,000 copies to sell. It's print on demand. Right, so it doesn't cost you to have a whole print the book, and there's a series on Apple Plus. I don't know if you ever heard of this TV series Silo. We'll look up this thing Silo. It started out as a novel that the guy self-published, and now it's a series on Apple.
I see. Before get the project, at first you need to get some audience for that, right? To get financed.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you could be the guy that makes the great action comedies in the Russian language, right? wouldn't that be more awesome than having to come to Hollywood and, deal with the language barrier and all that stuff? And then everybody goes, they end up making the English language version of your hit movie, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, the most important thing is to write, and enjoy writing, and that's why I'm saying if you're doing the screenplays, but then the novels, you are more likely to bring the novel to have an audience because you can always self-publish, right, and then market yourself. There was no internet marketing available when I got out of college, so you can kind of control your own destiny. I don't know what the independent feature film world is like in your country, but it was a big deal here, and now it's kind of people are less interested in it. But the other way is to just make your own movie. Make a low budget movie that's super fun that everybody loves. Like you did you ever see Robert Rodriguez, right? He made this
For
movie.
sure. Yeah.
Desperado. Did you ever see El
Desperado.
Mariachi? You know El Mariachi?
I know Desperado. I watched the Desperado. He's the first.
Okay, so Desperado was the Hollywood movie version of an action movie he made for $7,000 that went to Sundance. And El Mariachi is better than Desperado.
Oh, really?
And so if you think about it, I don't know what the marketplace is, but if you did your El Mariachi in your country, that's another way to get started. Or, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were not stars, but they wrote a project that they could star in, but they got a star to carry the movie. They wrote a part for Robin Williams. So if Robin Williams is the star of the movie, they can cast anybody as the young guys. So then Matt Damon and Ben Affleck says, we're going to star in it. There are all sorts of ways to find a way to get noticed. You just have to be clever about it, and just keep reading success stories of people that started from nowhere, and you come up with an idea.
Stop worrying. I also feel that we have this advantage of YouTube now as the younger generation.
Yes, it's interesting. Have you ever heard of this YouTuber guy named Freddie W? Freddie
No.
Wong?
No.
He also has a thing called Rocket Jump. Go on the internet. He might not be as prolific as he was, but for like a period of about 5 years, he was making these action internet shorts, but he was also using off-the-shelf software to do visual effects. And he was making $400,000 a year because he got so many millions and millions of views of his crazy videos. Like, do you know this video game Minecraft?
Sure, yes. Everybody
Okay,
knows it.
so what he would do is he would make a short of the Minecraft zombies coming to life in our world. And he would do his own, he wouldn't hire a visual effects company, he knew how to do the effects himself. He'd make a short film of he and his friends shooting at the Minecraft zombies, and he'd post it, and he would get a ton of views. And I think, he ended up doing a TV series for Hulu. And so that's another way of the internet creating kind of celebrity. He was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He was on, Jay Leno, because he was this internet phenomenon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your advice. It's really helpful, to be honest.
Try those 2 books would be the best thing ever.
Yeah, and Eugene wanted to show something.
I found funny detail because Daniel Craig gave us interview 12 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Although Daniel Craig is on my shit list because I hated the last Bond movie, and I hated the fact that Bond died, and it made me. Bond movies are supposed to make you feel great walking out of the theater. I felt terrible leaving that theater. And now I can't watch any of the Daniel Craig Bond movies because I know where they're going to end up. And it made me so mad because if the producer said we want Bond to die at the end, if he as an actor said, I don't want to do that, they wouldn't have done it. But I think it's hubris because he wanted to die and make that statement as an actor. He did this crazy thing. The hero dies at the end. It was all about his ego and his, him doing something different, but it's so anti-Bond. Bond is escapist action fun. And that movie was not fun. It made me mad. It made me sad. And now I can't watch any of his movies, and I hold him responsible. And so I used to say Craig is Bond, but now I go back to the original. Craig is not Bond. You tell him I'm mad, and I am the super duperest. Like, I was on a radio show after Sean Connery died, and I was telling on the show how much James Bond meant to me. I, in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, was really depressed. I was this nerdy kid. I was unhappy. I cried before I went to school. But instead of being the guy that like went to marijuana or delinquent or got bad grades, I celebrated James Bond. Every weekend I would go, this is way before the internet. I would go to the library and look for old magazines with articles about Sean Connery from Dr. No, or Life magazine does Thunderball, right? And I would, there was no videotape. When the James Bond movies came on the TV set, I would take my Super 8 camera and film the Bond movies off the TV set. When the movies were on TV, I would audio record them. And instead of listening to rock and roll, when I came home and did my homework, I would listen to 2 hours of the whole Live and Let Die movie, right? When I tried out for the high school play, my audition piece was playing Goldfinger when he gave his speech about Operation Grand Slam. I told you I wrote my own James Bond novels. I was this gigantic James Bond fan. And there was a woman on the same radio show that said, who was not as big a Bond fan, she goes, you're making me tear up. You are so impassioned. You should give Connery's eulogy, because I've never seen somebody love James Bond so much. And so for me, as the ultimate Bond fan, right? I mean, yes, they're Bond fans. I couldn't be the ultimate. Who knows? But I dare anybody out there to say, have you written 200-page James Bond fan novels? Did you listen to, I would sneak in, sometimes I'd go to the movie theater and take my cassette recorder. One time I brought my extra batteries and I knocked my bag over and the batteries started rolling down the ramp underneath people's chairs. People were like, what's going on? Because my extra batteries, which I didn't need, kept rolling through there as I was recording You Only Live Twice. I don't know anybody who has as many stories about how James Bond helped their mental health. And so I kind of feel like when I go to see Bond, it makes me so happy. And they made me so unhappy with that movie. It's against the brand, and shame on you. Nobody liked that. And besides that, even before they killed him, okay, you want to hear my review? Okay, you look at Shoot 'em Up. Every action scene has its own concept. It's the skydiving, it's the baby delivery, it's the spitting of the thing, it's the making love. Every action scene has to have its own character, its own texture, right? So in the last movie, you have the Aston Martin, which is okay, but I could do something way cooler with the Aston Martin. Okay, but it was beautifully photographed, and I love seeing the Aston Martin. So that's your car chase, your car scene. You should not have another car scene in an action movie, especially a big one. But they give us another one, and here's the action. James Bond is driving, and he's followed by 3 other cars. Oh, I'm going to get rid of that. Hey, he knocks it off the road. That's in a TV movie, right? Knocks it off the road. That's just like a TV movie. Third one, knocks it off. It's a TV movie action scene with another car chase, which you've already had your car chase. That is bad action filmmaking, right?
Right.
And the other thing is, I can't remember the specifics, but there's a scene where he has his gadget, right? And he shoots the guy, right? I think about it. Also, that whole poison garden that the bad guy has, they stole that from You Only Live Twice, the novel, the Ian Fleming novel. But in the novel, the whole movie is Blofeld has this garden of death that the Japanese recruit Bond to stop Blofeld from having this garden of death because all these people in Japan are going there to commit suicide, right? The whole visual of the whole book is Blofeld's Garden of Death. And then in this movie, well, we'll take a little bit, we'll make it a dinky garden, and it's only a small subplot in it. Why even do that if you're not going to do it right? And you spend the whole movie dealing with this quantum and then spectra, right? Like, and you're going to tie all the Daniel Craig movies together, like it's a long series of movies, a long novel. And then you basically, the stupid specter guys. In an earlier movie, Bond says, you guys are so stupid. You're all talking on the comms at once and I can see all of you guys. You're all together in one place. I can identify you. You're stupid. Well, then a couple movies later, they get all the Spectre people together in one place, stupid, so they can all be shot down. So Spectre's stupid, but also they show how dumb Spectre is. In the last movie, the bad guy is not Spectre. You basically say, the end of the Daniel Craig movies, we don't even care about the big organization from the previous movies. We're going to just get rid of them at the beginning of the movie, and now we're going to deal with this new bad guy. That's stupid. It's like, that's like if you did like the last Star Wars, right? And you go, the Empire gets defeated in the first act, and you bring up a whole new bad guy. I don't understand the decision making of these people.
That's so true. Yeah.
So you tell Daniel Craig he should have done better.
Okay.
Next time when you're gonna take interview,
Connery would never stood for that.
Okay. Okay.
You know. So
yeah, we all were kind of frustrated with the death of James Bond at the end.
Yeah. I mean, my hope one day is, okay, I do have to tell you, so I don't know if you'll see it in the trailer, but you know, I made this movie Nixed, right?
Okay.
About Nixon solving the JFK assassination. And when Nixon was in office, this Agatha Christie movie, Murder on the Orient Express, came out. And if you remember the original, Sean Connery was in it. So in my animated cartoon, I have Nixon watching Murder on the Orient Express. And I got to draw an animated Sean Connery because in honor Murder on the Orient Express. So I have Sean Connery in one of my movies because I drew him in, and because it was historically he was in that movie. So I'm kind of excited that I have Sean Connery in one of my movies. But I was hoping with all these digital doubles that one day they'll make a James Bond movie with a deep fake Sean Connery. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be. I guess your favorite James Bond is Sean Connery, then, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's. I mean, I understand. Like people say, Roger Moore is. It's who you imprint on. It's like, you know, a baby duck. You know, if it imprints, it gets lost from its mom. It'll imprint on a dog, and the dog is its mom. Whoever you imprint on. So I understand if you imprinted on Roger Moore, he's your favorite James Bond, right? And there are other people like my kids used to like the Star Wars prequels better because the film grain was more, you know, the photography was better than the earlier Star Wars movies. And so they like it just because it looks newer. It's like between color and black and white. And there's some people today that probably watch the Daniel Craig movies and think they're state of the art and he's their favorite Bond. But if you really look at because, you know, even like, you know, like when the modern blockbuster, action blockbuster really started with the Bond movies. There never used to be lines around the block for a super fun, crazy, fun movie, action movie, until the Bond movies. And you can see kind of the structure. The villain wants to destroy the world, right? Well, that all came from Bond. But now the Marvel movies, they don't just want to destroy the universe. They want to destroy multiple universes. But it's all a Bond plot.
Yeah. So the follow-up question is, according to you, what is the best candidacy to play new James Bond?
Oh, I have no idea. I think even though I'm mad at them for making the last Bond movies, Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, I trust them to pick somebody who is great. They're really, really smart about it, and they pick someone who is very fresh. I mean, do you guys have any choices or not?
No idea. Someone English?
Someone English, I agree. Or Australian, as George Lazenby was. I mean, we have to do it another time, but I'll have to tell you the amazing stories George Lazenby has. Like to get rid of his Australian accent, he had to take voice lessons. And the person coaching him was the same person that was coaching the English prime minister to get rid of his Cockney accent. And sometimes when George Lazenby was going into his class, the prime minister would be leaving. Amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Thank you, Michael. We are out of questions. We don't have any other questions.
Okay.
But
Send me those links to those movies, please.
Окей, окей.
Before the end,
If you forgot something, I can text you the answer if you need.
Окей.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And
Before
I'm
we
going
end,
to
I want
contact
say-
you. I'm going to contact you to help promote Blast 'em Up in Russia. All right. You know, and I don't know how you publish or when the publishing is, but I'm thinking of May, June, or whatever. If you can help me get the word out, because I really want to get the funding to make Blast 'em Up.
We'll be glad to help with that.
Okay, that'll be really great. You'll love it. You'll love seeing the video when I send it to you at some point.
Thank you. We will
Okay,
wait for
thank
the
you.
materials to
Thank you
watch.
very
I
much.
appreciate it. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
And
Okay.
you too.
I appreciate it. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
My pleasure.